All right. Well, in the interest of time, I think we should get started, and hopefully we'll be joined by more of the folks who are registered for this event as we get going. But thank you all so much for joining us. This event is called Promoting Sustainable Transportation at Buildings in Bellevue. We're really excited to see you all and to be talking about different ways that we can address transportation at our buildings and how there might be some opportunities for folks to make the commute more sustainable. So my name is Daniel Pope. I'm the executive director of the Bellevue 2030 district, and I want to start off by thanking the sponsors who have made our work in Bellevue possible. Vulcan Real Estate and Puget Sound Energy are two of our founding sponsors. We also have event sponsors from Amazon and Pace Equity LLC, who have been really great at supporting our work. For those of you that don't know, the 2030 district was born out of Architecture 2030's goals for a 50% reduction in energy, water, and transportation emissions by the year 2030. We are now in 24 municipalities across North America, with more on the way, the most recent of which, of course, was Bellevue. So we're very excited to be working on sustainability issues at buildings in Bellevue and also in Seattle. Collectively, the 2030 network represents 580 million square feet of commercial, multifamily, and municipal real estate. If you like this event and you're looking to do some similar stuff, we hope you'll join us for some of our other upcoming events. We have a tour of North Lake Commons, which there's still just a few more spots available for, on March 30th at 3 p.m. That's coming right up. Lumen Field, we're going to be touring on April 17th. There's still a few spots left for that. And of course, our 2024 Vision Awards are on April 25th at 5:30. We're very excited to share about some people who are really leading the way on building sustainability. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Mike Ingram with the City of Bellevue to share a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Daniel. We would appreciate if those of you attending could go ahead and just enter in the chat your name and what the building that you're associated with or the organization that you're with, so we can return to that later if we have time. But we also understand who's in the audience. So I'm one of, as Daniel mentioned, my name is Mike Ingram. I'm one of several city staff who focus on transportation demand management as part of our duties. And demand management really has to do with achieving efficiency in the transportation system. So, we can build out roads, and as the city develops, there's more and more demand for the space on the roads. And it gets to a point where, there's capacity constraints, and we're all familiar with this. And so as we approach that point, we, have proactively tried to encourage folks to use more efficient transportation systems. And so in the transportation management terms, that means, instead of everybody driving alone in their own car, doing ride sharing, carpooling, or using transit. So this way we can have a lot more mobility with more people on the same roadway system, because there's only a certain amount of roadway expansion that we can feasibly do or that really makes sense. And so this is, a key part of the city's strategy in accommodating growth going forward. And to the extent that some folks, can be encouraged or incented to use travel modes other than driving alone, that, makes the whole system work better, and including for folks for whom, driving alone is the only thing that really makes sense. So, so there's benefit across the whole system and across the whole range of needs through this type of activity. So we approach this work in several ways. There is a regulatory component, which I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with, or at least aware of. And part of that, one element of that is the commute trip reduction ordinance, a state law and city ordinance that applies to large employer work sites. So we have quite a few of these in Bellevue, and we'll hear a little bit more about that later in this session. We have similar types of requirements that apply to large buildings. So at the time of permitting, large real estate developments in Bellevue, in common with other cities in this area, often are conditioned with requirements to pursue ongoing activities to reduce the proportion of people that are commuting to the building by drive-alone mode. And we'll look again at what, here in a few slides of what that looks like on the ground. We have some other activities that are non-regulatory. So we do outreach and engagement and information sharing and some incentive programming through the Choose Your Way Bellevue brand. We have a website because ultimately, of course, mode choice comes down to individuals making their decisions. We do also have a suite of services that we offer to businesses, and we'll hear more about that later in the session as well. Again, marketed through Choose Your Way Bellevue. Just in terms of the kind of overall situation here in Bellevue, we are a large employment center. We have more jobs than we do residents, and we are expecting growth. I mean, we'll have another 23,000 jobs in the next 6 years. Similarly, we'll have growth in population, but again, we're going to continue to always have that be that major employment center. And what that really means in transportation terms is that we have an influx of people in the morning. During the peak period, and again, people leaving the city in the late afternoon. So that's where we get the stress on the transportation system, and that's where achieving the efficiency is important, and why we focus on commute trips to a large extent, because those two tend to be recurring trips, and they happen when the transportation system's under the most stress. Also, in terms of people coming into Bellevue, like I mentioned, there's more jobs than residents. So a lot of people are coming from out of town. And in our case, a lot of the trips are from north and from the south, as well as to the west, but really north and south are where the largest proportions are coming from. And the travel distances are, fairly significant, 13.5 miles, one way on average, is what the data tells us. We are seeing an overall pattern of a smaller proportion of people driving alone to work over time. So back, in 1990, we had over 80% of people driving alone to work in Bellevue. More recent measurement shows we're down to about 65%. So that's progress. It's incremental, but it's happening over time, and it makes a difference on the ground. So yeah, if we were still back at the old numbers, the conditions on our transportation system would be quite a bit different. Part of how that change has happened is through the commute trip reduction program. So we have seen, back when the program started in 1993, 76% of people going to those large work sites were driving alone. Now we're down to about 57%. And these are pre-COVID numbers, so it's not really influenced by work from home to any significant extent in terms of these numbers. So more recently, we'd have a significantly even lower number. So at this point, if you would just go ahead and weigh in with what you hear. What are the concerns you hear from employees and tenants, and that will help us to kind of understand how we can be most relevant. So in terms of what's occurring on the ground at buildings in Bellevue, typical features include what's listed here. We have typically an information display. This is a city requirement in many cases. And the better ones will have real-time transit information. They'll often have information about the bike parking in the building, who to contact in terms of the building transportation coordinator. We do encourage or require really efforts to form carpools amongst people working in the building, because they obviously have a common destination. So to the extent that they have common origins, there may be opportunity there for ride sharing. A number of buildings in Bellevue do offer several days of free parking each month. If you are registered as not normally driving alone to work, you can avail yourself of these free park days on those occasions when you may find the need to drive for whatever reason. And we'll talk about this in a minute about how that can be really beneficial. But really, also importantly, the subsidized transit pass is a common feature a prevalent feature in a lot of cases for folks in Bellevue and in the region. And that has an effect in increasing the use of transit and reducing the amount of drive alone. We've tracked this at work sites in Bellevue and do find a mode shift away from driving alone and toward transit that happens when these pass programs are introduced at a work site. Parking is a key part of the mode decision. So if people have to pay for parking, they will often give some thought as to whether that's the best or only option. If it's free, they often will just drive without giving too much more thought to it. But if they are paying for parking, the monthly parking pass is the prevailing model. And so if they decide, well, that's my best choice, they will then drive every day because they've already spent that money. So why wouldn't you? You get the most return on the money you spent. The alternative is, well, if I have to drive a few days a week, a few days a month, I have to pay that monthly parking price, and maybe I have to do it in and out, and then that incurs another cost. So you have to do that 2 or 3 times a month. You may start to think that the monthly parking pass is the better option in math terms, and then at that point they'll just drive. People will drive every day. So that's the kind of the situation that we're in. And that's where the free park days that I mentioned on the last slide can actually be helpful in kind of moving the needle and adjusting the kind of the math in terms of whether or not to buy a monthly pass. But an alternative approach that a few places have used, more in Seattle. There's only one in Bellevue that I'm really aware of, and that's Seattle Children's Clinic. But the alternative approach would be to charge daily parking only, but not at the kind of the high elevated rate that you normally see. So if we're to price more at the point, that the daily rate that's proportionate to what you would see as a monthly pass, then you get that price signal every day, and you do end up with less drive alone, less demand for parking every day, which in the current environment may not be that interesting to building managers, but as garages start to fill up, that may be a more one thing to think about. And certainly we'd be interested in talking at the city with anyone who's potentially interested in this, or at least wants to explore or understand more about it. This is a model that we're interested in testing in Bellevue. So just putting that out there. If you have any curiosity about it, we would love to talk to you. And at this point, I would like to turn to Jennifer Lee at the Summit Building for a description of what's going on there. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so here at the Summit, we're located off of Northeast 4th between 108th and 110th in the center of downtown Bellevue. So we do promote the commute benefits that Mike just referenced here, and it works really well for us. Essentially, participants who would like to enroll would go to a link that we provide, and they sign up and provide their alternative modes of transportation, and that allows them two free park days in the building of their choice with in and out privileges. We also provide bike storage on site. So we have two separate bike room locations, one of which is a premium, which means it has showers and lockers, and that is supported by Amazon, one of our tenants. And between the two bike rooms, I should call them, we near almost 200 bike racks, and they include bike repair stands, electric bike charging, and shower services, as mentioned. We also promote van pool and carpool in the building. So for van pool participants, they also register through the city, and then everyone who rides in the van pool has complimentary parking in the building. What else? We have EV charging stations between our two largest tenants, which happen to be two supporters of the 2030 district, including base building landlord. We have a total of 30 charging stations, mostly available to public, some private for tenant use only, but those are tenants that are encouraging their employees to use them. And all of this information is available on both our website and our interactive directory that is placed in the lobbies. And I guess at this point, I'll turn it over to Jake Udick with TransManage.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. While we wait for the next slide, I'll just introduce myself a little bit. I'm Jake Udick. It's nice to meet you all. I'm the Transportation Program Lead for TransManage, which is a subsect of the BDA, where one of our contracts has a consultant role with the city to promote Choose Your Way Bellevue and non-drivable transportation, which is ultimately what brings me here today. I can have another question for you all to respond in the chat here, which is, how has remote work affected your building, tenants in terms of parking and transportation? Get started with our commute fares. Very excited about our business offerings that we have. The first one here is our commute fares, which is definitely by far our most taken up, most well-reviewed program, I think. Which is what we do for these is we partner with local transit agencies like Sound Transit, King County Metro, and we'll come to your property or work site and answer all kinds of questions that you might have, that employees or tenants might have. And that's anything from where is the nearest van pool to my home or work site to like what is the best route to work. We also bring a bunch of useful brochures, handouts, and cool swag. And just overall, it's a really informative thing that you can kind of provide for your building. We also do commute program consultations where we'll kind of come in, identify some worksite characteristics like budgets, how big the building is, and kind of create personally tailored recommendations. We also provide light consultations for people as well if you're looking for something more just about business commute program needs or want to discuss motivators, barriers, things like that. We have our mini grant service. Choose Your Way Bellevue Business Services offers up to $10,000 in mini grants. It's for commute-related one-time capital projects that promote non-drive loan options. So you can kind of see some of the things on the screen there. So you can do like the transit screen. You can do some e-bike renovating. You can just buy e-bikes. We're pretty open to a lot of things that you can do as long as you can make a good argument for promoting non-drive loan transportation. Which brings us next to our trip logging system. This is one of my favorite things that we have kind of not just for you, but also for like all of your tenants, employees, individuals, anything like that. It's a rewards trip logging system that rewards people for logging non-drive alone trips in Bellevue. So we have 3 tiers, but I love highlighting the first one, which is get back on the move. And this one, you log just 25 days of non-drive alone trips. So you just take the bus to work or bike to work 25 times, log it on the website, and you get a free $50 gift card. And they're really good ones too. Cities put some nice ones in there. So it's like Orca, Spotify, Hulu, REI, some not your like mom and dad pet shop. So they're really nice ones. And the other 2 rewards that you see there are kind of ways to earn rewards or just kind of drawings for continued trip logging. So it's a way to just always kind of be rewarded for taking non-drive alone travel. We have an app. So the app is awesome. I use it pretty much every day. It's great. It allows you to take the website and kind of all of its resources that we have, and it lets you bring it with you on the go. So you can use it to log trips like I was just talking about. You can use it to kind of request some commute assistance, and it gives you access to all of kind of the real-time transit info that we have on there. Overall, it's just a really, really good resource. If it doesn't have the answer to your question, it'll probably show you where you can find it. So I highly recommend not only promoting it to like your building, your employees, but also just checking it out for yourself. Along the lines of kind of staying informed, we have a newsletter. So definitely check out the website and kind of sign up for that. We send out all the latest and greatest on non-drive alone travel, like the 2 lines opening April 27th. So that's one of the things that was on our last one. So just kind of any information you need to know, we send it out at the beginning of every month, so you don't miss anything. And some reasons to, some benefits of travel options. The biggest one that we always love to put in there is reduce costs. So TDM strategies encourage employees to use alternatives to driving alone. Kind of by promoting these options, companies can reduce parking demand, decrease wear and tear on company vehicles, save on fuel costs. And kind of along those lines, you can have a nice environmental impact. So by reducing single occupancy trips, TDM contributes to lower greenhouse gas emissions, less traffic congestion, and companies that prioritize sustainability can demonstrate this kind of through TDM initiatives. And by demonstrating that, you get to kind of enhance your corporate image. So companies that actively promote sustainable transportation options are, I'd say, generally viewed positively by the community, customers, and potential employees. It reflects a commitment to social responsibility, but also environmental stewardship. At reduced traffic congestion. So when employees use shared transportation modes, it eases traffic congestion, not only for all of us to get to work, but also like around your company premises and nearby roads. So it's a giant benefit to the entire community, not just your work site. And you get some improved employee satisfaction. So TDM programs enhance employees' commuting experience by providing flexible work schedules, telecommuting options, alternative transportation choices, and overall, like happier employees are more likely to stay with the company and be productive. And you can kind of along those lines use that to attract potential new employees who do value those sustainable practices. It can be a competitive advantage in the recruiting top talent. And I have another question for you all. You can go ahead and respond in the chat or in person. I'm not sure what we're doing for this one, but what offerings appeal to you? Is there any offering that you think should be added that maybe we don't have in there? And
one thing I was thinking is you might want to put the link to the app in the chat so
Sure.
people can access it. That would be a good idea. Not that that's part of this question.
No, yeah, that's totally fair. I'll throw a bunch of links in the chat after it's my turn speaking here to kind of show you where you can find all the stuff I was just talking about. Oh, and that's a really great point to bring up. We actually do have employer subsidized transit passes. So we do rebates. So the first year it's $50 per work pass, and in the second year it's $100 per work pass for Bellevue employers. And if you're a commercial or a property manager, it's 20% off each pass. So it's a pretty nice one.
Well, and also on that note, if you do have Jake, or even if you don't, if you have a commuter fare, which Jake does the best job, he does an excellent job with his team. It's a great way to inform everybody about, activities that are going on in Bellevue, including the 2-line. And also he'll hand out loaded Orca cards. But if you want to order loaded Orca cards, you can do that too. And I'm sure Jake can put that in the chat.
Yep, we do. We have $8 starter cards as well. So we can request up to 100. So if you have some employees that are kind of looking to try transit but don't have a card or don't want to like put the money to try it, it's a perfect thing to do that for. We also have individual programs called Try Transit. So where if you haven't been on the non-drive alone modes 3 times in 3 months, then you can get a free $20 gift card or Orca card, sorry, that you can apply for. But that one's only one at a time and harder to give out to your employees, but it's still really valuable to promote. And from there, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Allison Crozier.
Yes, I'm Allison Crozier, and I am in charge of the commute trip reduction program at the city of Bellevue. And basically, as of March this month, we have 73 affected work sites, and it's more than 60,000 employees, which is well over a third of all the workers in Bellevue. So it definitely affects quite a few people. And, employers do tend to give pretty robust benefits and whatnot, which includes telecommuting. From 93 to 2022, our employers helped our drive alone go down from 76% to 57%. And as the mandate continues, it just continues to go down. And we definitely saw a huge dip in after coronavirus with telecommuting. And thankfully, that's still going on. I don't have the capability to move the slide, so I'm going to say, Jake, next slide. All right, the history. So this was passed by the Washington State Legislature in 91 and updated in 2006 with goals to improve air quality, traffic congestion, reduce fuel consumption, and And in Bellevue, I'd say you look at your life in Bellevue, whether you live or work there, I'd say the most significant thing isn't crime, it's traffic. And so I'm thankful that our CTR ETCs have been so involved in this journey. They've done a great job helping people decide how to get to work, whether it's riding the bus, carpooling, vanpooling, bicycling, walking, teleworking, and whatnot. So that's been a good thing. Jake, next slide, please. So here is a map of our commute trip reduction sites in Bellevue as of last fall, and it's very tiny. So unfortunately, you can't see a whole lot, but you'll notice in the area of the CBD area, the Central Business District, there's a ton of, most of our CTR affected companies are there, and they have amazing bus service. And then we've got other entities on the outskirts of Bellevue who have bus service. It's not great. And that is actually part of our 4-year plan that we're working on now, is to engage with our commute trip reduction ETCs. ETC is Employer Transportation Coordinator, and to find out how can we better their situation where they are. We have a service, like our service center in Bellevue has a bus that goes every hour, and that's not enough. So we're trying to figure out ways we can help them at the, it's a, Bellevue service center in Bridle Trails area. And right now they have a lot of van pools, but there's another thing out there called a van share, where you could go to, it would live, the van would basically live at whatever park and ride you go to. So say if you go to South Bellevue Park and Ride, go park it there, and then take park it at the end of your route. Once you get to the closest route to Bridle Trails, and the van can literally go from point A to point B, and it's like $10 a month. It's really cheap, and it's a great opportunity. So we're looking into those quite a bit more. And now that Sound Transit's about to open the 2-line. Next slide, Jake. So as part of our CTR plan, it's very involved in terms of keeping everybody up to date. We give local development updates, stakeholder insights with meetings that we have. They're called ETC network meetings, but anyone's can be included. And we always have the same stakeholders: Metro, Sound Transit, Rideshare Online, Choose Your Way Bellevue, because they're always changing services and whatnot. It's never the same in a good way. Like Metro, Rideshare Online is soon coming out with a really great opportunity where van pools in our area will be $50 flat, which is a really good deal. So that kind of information is what comes out of that. And we'll have, keynote speakers. Recently we had the Belle of the Ball, which is Arthur Bacchus, who's the communications person for Sound Transit. And that was really interesting. And we just try to keep it up to date. We had a really good one recently with the city of Bellevue's development director, and because, what's being developed, what's happening. So everyone wanted to know, and it was a really interesting presentation. I got a lot out of it myself, so along with everyone else. And then we work with companies on promotions like Bike Everywhere Day and Month, Try Transit Month, and just ongoing keeping up with Choose Your Way Bellevue promotions and letting them know what's the latest thing happening. And we're also, this is going to be really fun, we're going to have a 2-line tour for our Bellevue ETCs, and it's only for them. And they get to take a tour of the 2-line and take the ride and whatnot. And they'll be given a lot of collateral. So when they go back to their offices, they can write to everybody in their staff and say, this is what I experienced. So that it'll be I think a good opportunity for everybody. And then we also have things like CTR tax credit classes. Many people don't know that if you spend money on your CTR program, you get the money back on your B&O taxes. And when I was in the private sector, I did that 30 times I did that tax credit. So I ended up teaching the class because I did it so often. And the DOT, the legislature is going to be changing the rules a little bit in order for smaller businesses to get more involved, which I think is a good thing. And that change is probably going to come in probably July. And then we always send topical emails a couple times a month. And if anyone would like to join the mailing on that one, go ahead and include your name in the email or in the chat. And then I can also invite you to the networking meetings. I think are the best because you get the most up-to-date information from the horse's mouth, depending on which entity we're referring to. Next slide.
So thank you, Allison. This is Mike Ingram again. And I'm just going to round out this presentation here with kind of an overview of what's coming down the pike. And obviously, Allison just spoke to the 2-line, which the first phase of which is opening next month. And then the next piece will be hopefully next year into Seattle and out to downtown Redmond. But in terms of transportation and options, that will be very significant for folks whose origin or destination is proximate to the stations. So I saw earlier in the chat indication about transit travel time being slower than the alternative of driving. Well, with 2-line, that won't be the case if that works in terms of your origin destination. So that can be really helpful. We've got the express toll lanes coming to and from Renton. So if you traveled south anytime in the last few years, you've certainly noticed the construction underway. And we'll soon have next year the express toll lanes in place. So it'll be basically similar to what we have now going north. So from Northeast 6th Street northward to Glenwood, we have express toll lanes where carpools in transit can use the center HOV lanes, and people have the option of paying and accessing those as well. And we'll have a similar situation going south starting next year when that new facility opens down to Renton, and then connecting onto 167 and continuing on to Canton to Auburn. So given the number of people we have coming from the south, that's going to be a pretty big deal. And the level of congestion we see from the south as well. So that's a pretty big deal. We've got the East Rail, which is a major trail corridor on the former Burlington Northern Rail Line route from Renton through Bellevue, the Wilburton area. So that's just a little bit east of downtown, passes behind the Whole Foods store. That continues north up into Kirkland and on to Woodinville. So parts of that are open already, and the north and the south part of the Bellevue. But starting in June, we'll open from REI from Northeast 4th Street northward into Kirkland. And then late next year or in early 2026, we'll have the East Rail open to the south as well. So you can continue south, over the old historic Wilburton Trestle and then south into Renton. So that's going to be a big deal for anyone on a bike, flat route, north-south, and a really attractive facility. And then finally, Sound Transit is working on the bus rapid transit. So they call it Stride, and downtown Bellevue will be the hub. So from downtown Bellevue Transit Center, there'll be a route going north up to Linwood using those express toll lanes that I mentioned a minute ago. And then there'll be a corresponding service from the Bellevue Transit Center south to Renton, and then on to Tukwila and to Burien. So again, we've got a number of improvements in the transportation situation here, particularly for transportation options for carpool, vanpool, transit, and biking that are really coming in online pretty soon. So that's all good news stuff. So that's really all we had today for you in terms of prepared presentation. Be happy to entertain any questions or discussion at this point. But I want to thank all of you for tuning in. But those of the presenters will stay online if you have any questions or comments.
I think it looks like Jake has a question.
Not necessarily a question, but just one thing I noticed we didn't really cover in here, and not exactly what we're here to talk about, but the city of Bellevue just finished up their draft for the 2024 through 2023 TDM plan. It's kind of their update, and they're seeking feedback for it. So if that's something that you'd be interested in to provide feedback or anything like that, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So definitely check that out because I know they would really appreciate that.
Well, yeah, and I just wanted to answer Zarina's question. You had mentioned travel times on transit, and that's the kind of information we're looking for with our CTR affected companies, but I'm sure we can get it from any company in terms of like equity versus inequity, meaning in certain areas there's a ton of bus service and in certain areas there's none. So that's what we're looking for. So where are you located, and where are the people coming from that you're referring to? This is for Zarina.
Hi, Allison. I actually work on the CTR program in Seattle. So I think it was just more of a general comment. We hear it all the time.
Mm.
Yeah, and just, I don't think that's going away anytime soon. So yeah, I appreciate you acknowledging it. I wasn't looking for like an answer, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and I totally understand that. And I think the thing is, like, once the 2 line comes in, Metro is going to realign, and Sound Transit, they're going to realign their bus service. And I personally think the Stride line is going to help a ton, but that's going to be the one that's the money to me, that in terms of people getting. It's like Sound Transit. We used to take it from our house in Redmond to Seattle. My daughter always wanted to go shopping when she was younger. Go figure. And it was like we were cheating. It was so easy, just so easy. Just pop over, pop back, but I think the Stride line will be just like that.
We have another question for Allison in the chat from Laura about how you become an ETC.
Okay, what company do you work with, Laura? Okay, well, whatever company. So we are in the process. We work with companies that have 100 employees or more that work the basic hours starting 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And that includes remote employees too. So like whatever your base is, and so if you have 100 or more, you're considered CTR affected. And so this year we onboarded 15 new companies just recently. And they go through a training class, which is very comprehensive. And then, truly at first, when I first started this way back when, like, it was like the receptionist did it. Now it is a career. It's an industry. It's a career. And so it's usually found that position is in like an HR realm or facilities. And the person is basically in charge of all the transportation options that the company offers. And you don't have to have transit to be one of them or whatever. A lot of companies now have gone to, most large companies offer transit, but they also offer telecommuting and whatnot. And then along with transit, like if you get an Orca pass, that also includes the cost of a van pool and whatnot. So, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find a large company nowadays to that doesn't offer these great benefits to attract this talent and just be a good citizen. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's definitely an industry now.
Allison, you said over 100 employees is the threshold?
100. And again, it doesn't matter if you're remote, and because obviously you get more points if you're remote. And it's not like there's no point system. And so, in fact, we're doing our survey, our biannual WashDOT survey starting April 8th. And that's how we find out the numbers that Mike is referring to in terms of non-drive alone and whatnot, and what methods they take. This year, it seems to be more vehicle miles traveled. So that'll be interesting to see. And then we have our own supplemental questions. But, we're very lucky, though, in Bellevue. We're very involved, CTR affected ETCs. Very fortunate. Does Zarina have a question? Okay.
I do. Thank you. It's actually for you again, Allison. You had mentioned that DOT was working on hopefully getting small businesses more involved, and my ears kind of perked up. Are you able to speak more to that?
Yes, I go to these meetings a couple times a month. They're TDM TDM Transportation Demand Management, technical committee meetings and whatnot. And they work with the legislature to kind of guide them to say, this is what people want. And in the past, you could, when I was at my private company, we could get up to $100,000 in, CTR tax benefits that would go to our B&O tax. And we got a lot every year. It was a good amount. And now they're going to limit it to a smaller number so more people can use it. And the hard thing is the outreach is how do you, and this might be a good question for the group, how do you get people to know that this exists? Because my CTR group knows because I teach the class every January. It's due the end of January, January 1st or 31st, period, end of story. You cannot turn it in late. But if anyone wants to go to my class, I feel like I'm an expert after doing it 30 times. So, and honest to God, it's the hardest thing is to log into the SAW account or the actual state account. And the form is so simple. It's crazy. It's very, very simple. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Are there
So
any other?
basically,
Oh.
everybody in this group wants to know how to get those benefits. Just put your email in the system and we'll keep you posted on all the ETC network meetings and whatnot. And I think those are really good because you get it, again, the direct information from the actual person who's in charge of whatever it may be, van pool, carpool, transit, whatever. And then also the CTR tax classes, as I said, they're usually like the first week of January. We do a couple of them, and it's very easy. But again, our problem at Bellevue is how do you tell the smaller client that has a smaller company that still provides benefits? How do they know? Because we just, at this moment, if anyone has ideas, I'm all ears.
Well, great. Are there any other questions from our attendees today? Well, great. If there's no more questions, then you've got the emails and phone numbers for our speakers today. And if you'd like to follow up or if you'd like to be connected with them, please also don't hesitate to reach out to the Bellevue 2030 district at bellevue@2030 with an s.org. And of course, we can direct you to the right people at the city and at downtown Bellevue. Thank you so much to our speakers, Mike, Jennifer, Jake, and Allison. Thank you so much for making this happen. We're really excited to be able to share these resources with 2030 district members and partners and people in our community. Again, we'll be sharing this on our YouTube channel. And if anyone is interested in learning more about the 2030 districts, please don't hesitate to reach out. So I hope you'll join me in thanking our speakers today. And we look forward to seeing you all at our next education event. Thank you so much.